Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to use an applique pressing sheet and a Lightbox to make even the most intricate applique easy. So you may have looked at projects before and said, oh, it's too complicated. I can't make it come out right. It never comes out right. That's all going to go away today. This is a longer video, but I'm going to take you from beginning to end, how to make the first block. This is the Santa Stable Block of the Month, exclusively designed right here at Shabby Fabrics. And I just wanted I get this question a lot of how do I move these pieces to my background if I can't see it anymore? How do I use this and all of these tools together to get predictable, beautiful results? And that's what I'll be going through today. So get some popcorn, maybe some hot chocolate. This is a longer video, but at the end of this, you're going to realize that this is so achievable. Even a beginner could be looking at a project like this and be absolutely successful. I can't wait to show you my favorite products that really made applique of any level completely doable. So let's jump right into this. Now, one of the things, this is not just unique about this project. The technique you'll be using, the technique that you'll be learning today will be, of course, through all of the blocks of this quilt in any applique project. So just make some notes. Of course, watch as you need to as you do applique projects. But this is a repeatable process that's going to make you successful every single time. Now, every time that you buy a pre-fused laser cut kit from Shabby Fabrics, you will get a fusible product on the back, and everything is precisely cut for you, and in this case, nested. What do I mean by that? As you can see from this first block, we have multiple pieces of the white glitter for example, the snow on the Christmas tree. You will receive a piece just like this. Those three pieces are in here and you simply just punch them out. That's all you have to do. As you start working with maybe some pieces that are smaller, for the mouse, for example, there's some pretty tiny pieces in there. I want to encourage you that once you punch out all of your pieces, go ahead and keep this just in case later on you're missing a small piece of white glitter. My guess is it's right inside here and maybe you didn't notice. So don't be tempted to throw that away until your project is absolutely done and you know you really did punch out all of your shapes. Go ahead and put that aside. You'll continue punching out all of your shapes, and I like to lay them out on design boards, and here's how I organize them. As I look at the project, I kind of analyze, there's really different sections. I'm not just going to put a background fabric down and start putting down piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, hoping that I'm going to be able to see through the background fabric. Let me tell you what I mean. Let me explain that in greater detail so you'll understand why we're going to be assembling the block in smaller sections first and then bringing everything back onto the background in larger sections. The way that this particular project is designed, in your kit, you'll have a piece of the red, basically wood texture. We have you cut it out to shape, and it fits exactly within the boundaries of this diagram. As you can see, everything is going to be appliqued on top of that. But you can also see that I now can't see my diagram underneath, right? So for that reason, I'm just going to put the background piece aside for now, and we're going to focus on looking at the different sections of that. We have our Christmas tree, which is a section all by itself. We'll pre-assemble just that using the applique pressing sheet and our Lightbox. We will do the mouse and the stocking as a unit. We will do the frame, trim, the door as a unit, our reindeer, and then the sky and the barn at the top, the stable at the top, and the snow. And then we'll be moving those onto the background. And that's where the Lightbox comes into play in the applique pressing sheet. Now, there's 3 different sizes of Lightbox we use here. They're all by Daylight. Daylight makes this incredible Lightbox that has not only beautiful illumination, but of varying intensity. Here's what I mean. I can turn this on and notice the brightness gets brighter, and if I touch it again, it goes down until I find my favorite spot. When I turn that off and turn it back on, it remembers where I was. I love that. So I might want it at this brightness for this project, but maybe for something else that has a darker background, a darker fabric I'm trying to see through, and I need more intensity, I can increase that intensity. There's nice measurements along the side. This is the Daylight Wafer 2. Now it does fit our project. Notice around the perimeter of this, it is dark. I am kind of on the boundaries of the dark trim here. So I will be working with this project today just because of space constraints. But this is where the Daylight 3, which is the largest one beneath us here, I'll show you that one right now, may be ideal for your just the projects. If you do a lot with applique, anything maybe you're tracing, it could be even hand embroidery designs. This is a beautiful, bigger, obviously, format where now I can see just a greater space. I'm seeing the entire diagram without the dark trim around the edge. So this is just another option for you. It's obviously fabulous, and again, has the different intensity of light. Let me just move this aside for now. And again, if I had a choice between the two, I'd certainly be using the Daylight 3, but we need some space today, so we'll be working with the 2. As I mentioned, we're going to be approaching our project and analyzing our project to understand, we're going to put this section together, that together, this together, and then we'll be moving the elements onto the background. Let's start off with something very simple, our Christmas tree, for example. I'm going to turn the light off so it's a little bit easier for the overhead camera to see. When you're approaching a project like this and trying to understand what the layering is, anything with a dashed line means it lies behind. It's going to lie underneath. Now I'm using these 10 by 10 inch design boards. These are from Lori Holt. I love these. And once I punched out all of my pieces, I went ahead and separated all of the pieces to make the Christmas tree, and I have them on my board. So I can make sure ahead of time that I have all of my elements. Now I went ahead and removed the fusible from the back. Let me just show you. I have the fusible on this piece still. Here's the white fusible. The quickest way to get this off is if you just kind of fold this back, and I kind of just flick it with my finger. See how it'll separate? Then I just peel it away. So to save some time, we went ahead and removed the fusible from all of our pieces, I believe except that and the sky. That's all you need to do. Go ahead and do that ahead of time. Now, one thing that's very important is while our Lightbox will be assisting us, we can never iron on that. I have inadvertently done that. I got really excited and I forgot to move that to my pressing mat. You will ruin your Lightbox doing that. So please be very careful to have a pressing mat nearby that you will be switching your project over to and pressing with. My iron is heating up to a medium setting. Make sure you don't get that too hot. Fusible webbing that is heated too hot repeatedly will fail. So it's very important that you use the proper amount of heat. Now this is an applique pressing sheet that we'll be using in conjunction with that, and that's the Fons & Porter applique pressing sheet, which I absolutely love. Before I bring that onto the background, let's just study the Christmas tree, the stars, the snow, and the tree trunk. We always want to understand which piece should go down first with this project. Looking at this, the easiest way to kind of know is if I consider only my Christmas tree, what is my lowest number? We number our diagrams where piece number 1 is on the very back, piece 2 is on top of that, and 3 and 4 and 5 and so on and so forth. So if I'm looking at just the Christmas tree, I'm going to find the lowest number piece, which in this case is the trunk, and then followed by these other pieces. So this is where the applique pressing sheet comes on. I'm definitely going to get my Lightbox on. Let me show you actually the difference. I'm going to put the applique pressing sheet over top of that, and I can absolutely see that. I can get the job done. However, when I turn the light on, notice how it just gets that much simpler. I can beautifully see it. This is The Lightbox applique pressing sheet and the Lightbox, if you're going to applique, just make this investment. You also, of course, want a pressing mat near you. You can get the June Taylor one. This happens to just be a piece of wood that we cover with a piece of batting and fabric. So you can make your own. But let's get started. The trunk's going to go down first, and that's going to fit in that footprint. See that dash line? Let me move this away. The dash line means something else is going to sit on top of that, right? We mentioned that. So let's just go ahead and get that reoriented. I'm going to push that up so my head's out of the way and you can see exactly what I'm doing. We'll just put our bottom piece down. And I recommend putting as many pieces as you're comfortable doing before you start ironing. There's no reason to take this to the pressing mat and iron one at a time. You're just going to keep reheating it and reheating it and reheating it. Remember, it can fail if you heat it too many times. So for this reason, I'm just going to put as many pieces as I'm comfortable with. There's that piece. And looks like this is our next piece. Notice how I've covered up that snow, but I see a little bit of it out here, right? It's giving me a little bit of a clue of what will come. You'll begin to start noticing some subtle clues of where to put your other pieces. And we'll put our star on. And let's see here. I'm going to put my bottom snow on. I definitely can see that one well. Now this may be where we want to turn up the intensity of our Lightbox to its fullest setting. Notice how now I can see the outline of this more. That's where the variability of intensity is your friend and is a fabulous attribute, really, of this Lightbox. Most Lightboxes are on or off. This is one of the few that I've ever seen that has this varying intensity of light, which is so very helpful. And that goes like that. Okay, remember what I said. You cannot iron on this. So we're going to grab this whole section right here, all of this. And we're just going to literally move this to the side. Just like this. And we're going to press. No sliding around. Press straight down, holding the iron in place for 4 to 5 seconds in each section. If you do have a steam feature, I just heard the steam going off from this iron, turn it off. If it starts to steam, lift it up and wait for it to stop steaming. You really don't want steam associated with this process. By the way, speaking of this iron, which is great for projects that do have steam, you might even want to take the water out of your machine, your iron, or just simply turn it off. Okay, I think we're done steaming. So we have our project put together, and I'm going to let this cool. It's very tempting to want to peel it off now. Don't do it. I have made that mistake, but really what's just happened is the glue that's on the back of these shapes has now transferred to a certain degree. It's made us, it kind of transfers to the background, but then will release, but only once it's cooled again. I have gotten excited, started to peel it away, and it was kind of in this mid stage where I had some of the Fusible on the piece, the fabric, and some on the applique pressing sheet, and I really had a mess on my hands. If it cools down and it doesn't make a clean removal once you start to peel it off, you might not have heated it up enough for it to be on the applique pressing sheet. We'll check ours once that cools down. Let's move on. I can just move this off to the side and maybe I'll go work on I can even turn this to the side. It's out of the way, right? I often use my applique pressing sheet that way, or sometimes what I'll do is I'll have multiple applique pressing sheets and I just put that off to the side for now. Having multiple applique pressing sheets can be really helpful, especially if you're using something like one of our long table runners that Casey's designed, where multiple applique sheets was really helpful because some of the landscape pieces were longer than the width of the applique pressing sheet. So there are other projects where multiple applique pressing sheets are really helpful. So that's another reason that you might want to consider purchasing more than one. So again, we can move on to this here, which is a far more intricate piece. Let's put this aside for now. This might have cooled down. I think it has. Let me just show you. Let's move on to that real quick. I'll turn this off just for now. Now what I like to do is I like to grab a piece of this. Look how it just begins to peel away. I don't just rip it off here. There needs to be a little bit of finesse where I just begin to gently kind of peel this, where you're just kind of making sure all of your elements are together. And look how now, especially in the area where there's very little, what I would call contact. See how there's really not that much contact? Be gentle in that area. If the star comes off, that's not a problem. You can maybe even just put that on visually later. Don't worry about that. But you see how now I can, once I have all of my elements, I'm moving this as a unit to my background versus trying to visually get that correct, which I don't think I probably would. So I can put that now, if I want to just put that right back onto my design board, that element is now just waiting for the other elements to come together. Sometimes when I'm working on an intricate shape like this small little stocking, again, I'm going to analyze that and figure out where all the pieces go. But sometimes my very own fingers get in the way or they move pieces. Sometimes using the applique stiletto, this is Casey's favorite tool when he's doing applique, to be able to manipulate pieces very delicately without our finger, which kind of almost blocks our view. We can be getting in there in a more specific way. So let's dive into this because this is the most intricate. You're going to do the other elements exactly the same way we did the Christmas tree. But let's dive into this because if there was ever a more challenging aspect of it, this is going to be it. So let's just dive into that. What's step one? Analyzing which piece is in the back first. And looking at this, it looks like my lowest number is going to definitely be the main part of the stocking. So we can get that ready to go on top of our applique pressing sheet. We'll get our light back on. And I'm going to bring this bright. I'm going to bring that really bright. I want to see that in great detail. Now I'm going to have a lot of pieces moving here. For this reason, I'm not going to assemble this whole thing kind of loosely. I may be heating and coming back and heating and coming back because there's a lot, it's difficult to work with smaller pieces. So this is where we're going to be looking at our picture to understand, okay, so we have the toe and the heel are blue. Let's look at that. And our heel. Right there. For me, for now, that's enough. I'm just going to go heat that up. Let's make sure we didn't miss something here. I think I might have moved that ever so slightly. If you're not certain, take it back to the diagram. Let's just keep working through this. I think I bumped it. That can happen. Okay, we're going to gently move that a little more to the middle. That little guy just doesn't want to stay. The invention I have always felt was the perfect invention. If anyone's out there looking for the next amazing business idea, it's to have something that's on top of our light box that is heat tolerant so that we don't have to move things back and forth off the light box and onto a pressing mat, because think of just how amazing and time-saving that would be. So that's an invention I'm looking for. Hopefully somebody out there is going to create it. All right, that's done. Our next piece, just so we can look at it together, piece number 48 is going to be here. 49, our mouse, let's see here, is going to be, that's our mouse body, I believe. And sometimes it's hard to visualize it. If that's the case, you kind of just continue to rotate it until you've got it. It looks like that's the, I wouldn't have figured that out, right? That's the mouse body. All right, so let's just get this piece by piece back on here. Put that back over our diagram. Get our illumination going again. We know that piece is next. I can see that under there. And if you're not sure, if you're like, does it go like this or go like this? Move this for now. Put that piece down there and see, does it fit this way or does it fit that way? You have the footprint of that right there. I believe it's this way. Yes, it is. So move that away. This comes in next. I can see that right there. I'm going to iron that down right now. Okay. That iron just wants to steam. In this instance, I would just remove the water from the iron so that it has no ability to do that. Now, you can keep building the mouse within the stocking like this, or you build the body of this mouse and then sit him in the stocking. Do you see how that's going to be helpful? Because right now, with this like this, I've covered up kind of his body and his paws. So I'm going to leave this off to the side, and let's go work on just building this aspect of it. Here, well, let's see. That's piece 52, 53, and 54 of the paws. Actually, 50 is next. See that? See how I thought this has happened to me more than one time, more than once. In fact, let's talk about that. This is not anything I plan to do on this video, but we're here now. Let's say I had done that. Let's say I had ironed piece 52 down, and actually piece 50 is actually what should have come next. I have discovered, and I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to purposely put this in the wrong order. Let's say I hadn't caught that mistake. Like I put this down and I put this down, and they're in the wrong order. And I ironed that like that. Let's just iron these two pieces together, just like this. I'm just making this up right now. I can't tell you on one hand how many times I've done this wrong, because one of the things I've discovered as I was learning to quilt and learning to applique, and I of course was getting a lot of different people's patterns, there are a lot of applique patterns out there that are not numbered. And I, on my own, had to understand, okay, what piece is in the back? What piece is next? What piece is next? And I was trying to figure that out, and I got it wrong. Which is one of the reasons we number ours here, to help you just be able to go. You don't have to try to visualize it and figure it out. Well, I got the arrangement wrong, but I didn't have more fabric. Here's what you can do. Most people think this is forever. It's fusible webbing, right? Well, what we've discovered is if you heat it again, let's heat it again, and you move quickly, I can take it back apart, okay? So this is just something that I wanted to share with you that I've learned along the way. Do you lose some of the adhesive characteristics? Absolutely. But usually it's not enough that you can't proceed with the project. So that was something I wasn't expecting to show you, but hey, we're here and I'm about reality, okay? Reality quilting, reality applique, you're going to run into this. There are a lot of applique patterns you might even have in your sewing room that don't have numbers. You might want to go ahead and number those yourself before you even start, or if you make the mistake, now you know how to fix it. Let's get back to building our mouse. Piece number 50 was next, as we discovered. And hey, I'm going to use a piece that's already been heated up once and removed, right? So we're going to see how this actually does work when we heat it up again. I'm going to turn my intensity up as bright as I can go because I need as much help as I can get. Let me turn it down, turn it all the way up. Here we go. Piece 50. Now, because I'm working with some smaller pieces, I'm going to be ironing a lot more frequently because I'm going to start inadvertently bumping things. This is where Casey's applique tool comes in so handy. We know we've got our little pom-pom. Even if you want to hold this down like this while you're even placing it so you don't bump it. So right there, that's enough for me right there that I'm going to take this and iron it down. The smaller the section, the smaller the more little pieces, the more that's going to be very easy to get the orientation and the juxtaposition of the pieces wrong. You're dealing with the face of a cute little mouse. I really don't want to get any of those pieces out of position or it will be very obvious. So we've done piece 50, 51. The body is next at 52 and 53, 54. Our little paws are the gray ones, so I'm going to get those ready to go. And we know our body is right there. And then our little face will be next. So let's do that. So let's bring that back over. Notice, guys, how this is not difficult. It's just time consuming, right? But it's a fun thing to do. And the results are so worth it. So this is our next piece. And then we have our little paws. And you know what? I could see, because those little paws are fussy, I'm going to iron this down right now, just like that. Straight down. Okay, we get realigned. And now our little paws come into play. This one might have its fusible on the back. It looks like it does. Let me just remove that real quick. That's another thing you might discover. I've been in the middle of applique projects and thought I had removed the paper, and I'm trying to glue it all together, iron it together, I should say, and it's not coming apart, or it's not sticking together, and I'm like, what's wrong with this adhesive? Well, the paper was on the back. So if you find that to be the case, it could be because that paper is still on the back. Sometimes just getting the applique, the paper off of them, takes a little bit more effort because it's hard to separate the two to get it. Oh, there it is. Okay, one. Okay, that one's got it off. Two. And I'm comfortable putting the little mouse head on right now. But I'm not going to go any further than that. Okay. So let's see what's next. I believe we have just the interior portion of the ears. And what else do we? The hat trim. Okay. So we're headed back over here. get relined up. Now sometimes, no matter what you do, how bright that is, you have to kind of just visually look. I might slide that out of position and at least confirm I have the proper ear where it belongs. And that looks like that is this ear here, and that one's there. Okay, so sometimes you have to go just a little bit blind. I'm going to use Casey's trick to use the stiletto to help me out, to move that into position. There we go. And then our hat band, let's see here. That's going to go right on top of that. You know, I don't think I want to push my luck. Let's iron that down. I don't want those little ears to move when I put the hat band on. Okay, and I have my hat band, which goes right across here, just like that. How cute is this? We'll iron that. All right, so now you've seen that sometimes not only do you make this is kind of a section, but there's a subsection of a subsection, because I could have kind of guessed where those pieces went, at least the body and the paws, or you can make that separately, let that cool down, and then move that to be at the top of the stocking. The same is true while that's cooling down. I'm going to let that, because I don't want to pull that up and potentially pull that apart. Look at this on the reindeer. The moment I put this on, I cover up the bells, right? So for that reason, you'll make the bells separately, and then you'll move those on there. And isn't this cool? This is one of the things we call a knockout at Shabby Fabrics. How that's behind, and this is on top, and look how that's just a gorgeous bell. I mean, can you imagine cutting that out on your own? That would be very difficult to do, and I just don't think you'd get quite the same results because, well, frankly, a laser is perfect, and as humans, we're just not. So I love that we create those knockouts. We did the same thing for the name of the reindeer. So any project you get from us like this is already cut out for you. You lay this onto the background, iron them together, and isn't that incredible? How then you put that on there. But can you imagine, again, tracing and cutting that out yourself? The results just wouldn't be quite as good. So I have a feeling this has cooled down. Let's pull that off of here. Now, I have very little contact with my hat and my pom-pom. So that's an area we know we have to be very tender with, very careful. If it comes off, don't worry about it. It looks like it has in my hand, because I know when I move that, looks like it's on there just a bit. I know when I move that onto my background, it's the tip of the hat. I mean, there's no other place it can go. So it's pretty obvious. Now here, I've got my stocking. I've got my little mouse. And notice how he just sits right in that spot so perfectly. Just fits right in here. Let me tilt him. Do you see how now the orientation is just where you want it to be? Consequently, with the face, like on the mouse, you can either draw that on with a micron pen or embroider if you wanted to, but that would be your choice. So I'm going to move this over and iron that down. Now we have together made the most intricate part of that block for sure. Anytime you have smaller pieces, it is the most intricate part. We'll iron that down. Same exact technique. We'll be using the same technique for doing the trim and the door. That's going to be a unit. And now that we've made this together, you're going to be able to easily pick out what the obvious sections will be. The reindeer, right? We've said you're going to go ahead and pre-assemble the bells by themselves. Then, once those are done, you will move those onto the wreath of the reindeer. You'll make maybe the head and the antlers as a unit. So that I can be able to show you how to bring all the elements to the background. I will do a certain amount of this off camera, how I would present that. Then when we come back together, I'll show you the elements that I made in sections and we'll finish up our block together. All of the elements are now pre-assembled, and I'll point out some of the things that I discovered as I was putting the various units together as I put them down to the background. Now, I didn't put my jingle bells on top of the wreath because I couldn't see where they went, and actually as we go through that process, you'll see it doesn't actually matter if they're exactly where it's shown on the picture and on the diagram. With faces, you want it to be right on. But with certain elements like the snow and the Christmas tree, it's okay if it's off just a little bit, or maybe you prefer it to be somewhere else. Once the background has been cut to size, your, of course, piece in your kit would be bigger than that. It's very important you cut that to precisely the same size, as it will be sitting inside the framework of your diagram if you are working either with this pattern or perhaps you've purchased the kit. Let's turn our Lightbox on to its full brightness, because actually without that, let's just lay this down and you can see, especially with a dark background, I have no chance of seeing where my elements go, and I will now be relying on my picture and kind of just finessing this and putting things together as best I can to figure out where they go. This is the beauty, again, of the Lightbox. I can see exactly where it needs to go. I can easily see the lines. This is where you refer to your diagram to say which pieces were numbered the lowest. Those will be going on first. Our beautiful snowflake sky and the stable structure at the top is first. So as I lay this back down inside the framework of my background, or of my diagram, this will go on. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is when we were putting this together off camera, I realized I really only needed to get my gray kind of roof just attached to the sky and then put my snow on. So I left the majority of my white, which is part of my fusible webbing, on the back, and I only removed a little bit of the corners to kind of just secure that down to my applique pressing sheet so that that would stay in place while I position the roof line in the snow. There's no reason to go ahead and remove all of that only to then have to peel it back off the background. But now that I want to take that down and put that all the way to that, I'm going to remove the rest of it. So that's just, if you forget to do that and you remove all of the fusible, that's fine. It just means you'll just be peeling a little bit more off of your applique pressing sheet. So not to worry, but that's just another level of thinking and another something that you might want to consider when you are pre-assembling your sections. I'm going to get that background positioned exactly just so, and this is going to fit right in that seam allowance. It's going to go all the way to the edge, all the way at the top, and I can see everything is just lining up beautifully. Let's bring that over, and we're going to start ironing down our elements. And of course, those will be sewn into the seam allowance. So if you see just a little bit of the red peeking out, not to worry, that's all going to be sewn into the seam allowance. I look back at my diagram and see that looks like my stable, kind of the trim section, and you can visualize that too, is behind, followed by the reindeer. And it looks like the Christmas tree is kind of just overlapping the reindeer a little bit, so that'll be coming on next. and then your little stocking and mouse can really come on at the very end. So let's position that on there. And this is when we'll be putting on our structure. Now it's really important visually, I want to point out for this specific project, notice how these need to line up. You don't want those of varying heights. Yet another reason to be using a Lightbox and an applique pressing sheet to get your pieces precisely where you want them to be. So you have this uninterrupted kind of horizon of that wood tree, of the wood trim on this particular project. So you may be working with another applique pattern where that continuing horizon from block to block is important. All the more reason to be using a Lightbox and applique pressing sheet to get that accomplished. Now that's down, and you know what? I feel like I can go ahead and put my reindeer on because I clearly see where that needs to go. I can put my sign on. Again, I see where that clearly needs to go. My Christmas tree. Even my little, oh, we lost our little pom-pom, but we know that's at the very end of our stocking. So we can just place that where we like it, where we want it. Do you see how pre-assembling these makes this so very simple? Now with the bells, this is where I will visually just look at my picture and I'm just going to place them. I can't see underneath there anymore. There's far too many layers. And I'm just going to visually place them where I want them. Let's place that there. And this one here. And you can customize that to be whatever you want. But I'm just going to try to mimic that. Now look at this. We're just going to move that over, and as we've done before, we're just ironing down our various elements. And look at that. Now we are ready in short order to go ahead and start stitching things down with beautiful thread, personalizing that for the little, in this particular case, you might want to pre-draw the muzzle onto this piece before you put that, iron that down if you're planning to do hand embroidery, or maybe you want to draw that down. So those are just some things to consider when you are going to be adding either hand embroidery or micron on maybe a smile or on that face of the reindeer and also of the mouse. So you can see with just a little bit of patience and good technique, using the applique pressing sheet and a Lightbox, pre-assembling your applique into smaller sections, bringing it onto the background in bigger chunks is going to give you a beautiful picture that's accurate. So thank you. I know it's been a long video. I hope you've enjoyed really learning how easy and fun applique can be with some really cool ingredients. And I'm looking forward to showing you more applique projects. Be sure to subscribe. We're always coming out with new projects, DIY, and more. So I'll see you next time.